hope, I guess. That would be the most positive rating we could find. But not just yet. Well, maybe now. There's a glimmer. It's called How Winter Ends. This takes place sort of in Vilnius. And in Vilnius, it is a very strange place, an interesting, nice place. Everyone looks like me. I'm just like, oh, I like it here. It was tall. And it's like, everyone, look at these people. You know, they're well dressed. They're really swanky. But there were clearly, in terms of Jewish Vilnius, there were lots of things there. But there was a very nice, well-supported museum. But it was always closed, so we never went in. And instead, we went into this just ghastly place. And we couldn't find it. And we look and look and look and look. And then you step through a door and another world opens, and you're like, oh, it's one of these. But it was really strange because there were Axelrods and Gordons, even my wife's family, the Varons were there. What were those Mediterranean people doing in Vilnius, for God's sake? Taking music classes with Jascha Heifetz. I was like, the world has changed, you know. We're in La Grande now. So, How Winter Ends. You're searching lists of surnames of the lost, as though among those euphonious compounds and indigenous-sounding hybrids, you could discover a cure for what coarsens and corrupts you. The little hunchback in the mink coat interrupts, because she's seen this all before, closes the chronicles, groans as she lifts and carries it across the sagging floors to its chain inside the safe that survived the worst. You drift back separately through the passage with its leaky plumbing and falling plaster to the door where you rang. She answered, and, blocking your way, thanks you now for the donation you haven't made. And weren't you just about to leave? In the photo you showed her of Dora, the auntie with the withered leg who nobody married, poses, if such a word is even permissible, in an archway, a blurry acid mark of a short life that others reasoned mattered less than yours. And so they left her behind to watch the flat until someone sent for her. Twilight and coal ash falling on snow in the courtyard below. Those faces watching behind lace wonder who you are. In the archway to the street, the chill of rotten leaves, urine of feral cats, stone stained by a crust of salt, the high water mark of time drawn on the wall by chalk in a child's hand, an equation spray painted just above it in universal glyphs, cock plus cunt equals question mark. The bells empty, cold iron 18 times over the derelict city, Jerusalem of the North, and in the silence that follows, a fugitive song, an invisible bird answering from its perch in a tree near an ice-bound curb, 2 ascending notes and a long liquid trill. I'm going to choke here. So I tried to get the page designer anyway to actually do the graffiti, but she would not respond to my encouragement. I remember years ago, oh, this is a ridiculous story. I better not tell that story. I better move on. No, I can't. I mean, it's too vulgar. It's vulgar. It's inappropriate for a public setting like this. The library is a gift to this fine city. And there's no reason to bring that up, even though I did. Song of the Earth. Our hostess never mentioned a cosmonaut. And I never would have suspected it if, after dinner, he hadn't leaned back in his chair, his hairy forearms on the table. Almuth had just served blackberry cobbler, and Vasily sighed with such grief he sounded like a conscript posted to a border crossing 10,000 leagues from the capital. This, too, he said, this I ate on Soyez. It possessed the texture of, how say you, styrofoam? Imagine that. Gliding in the solitude of his capsule in space, and a nostalgic dietitian thought to send along blackberry-flavored styrofoam. What exhilarating sorrows! You glance back, and sometimes the earth's not even there below, not the curve of the high latitudes, nor the bulge at the equator, just a void. And then the nausea of that illusion, gravity having let go entirely, so that you wobble out of orbit, a wanderer in the vertigo of infinity. And then retro rockets fire. And truly Promethean, you puncture the sky, returning in a skin of superheated plasma. You may explode, and there's nothing so fascinating to watch as that catastrophic trail of your debris strung across the blue, an illusion of weightlessness, the crashing to earth. Yes, cobbler really is something to miss out there. Thorns tearing at your wrists, the thin skins of the ripe fruit, a transitory state of being. Neither membrane nor liquid, touch it and it bursts. Communion, blackberry cobbler, the brown sugar, butter, flour, soda, and salt, especially the salt. Salt dripping from your brow, salt of terror, salt reddening your eyes and temper. Sitting there, earthbound, belly full, sweating, and pounding back another glass of Amur vodka, Vasily seemed a traveler still, returned from the far places of the frontier, a rare disease incubating in his lungs. Sehr good, yeah? I said, my mouth full. He grunted, picking the seeds from between his teeth. So I'm just going to read one or two more at the most, and then I will shut up. I'm not going to read from the last section of this book because it's a choral poem. And my dream is someday to have a room full of, like a chorus, and have them do it, you know, and they just eliminate me altogether. And the chorus, there's a cantor, there's a man, there's a woman. It's very, very exciting and very hopeful for a poem that posits a theory of language. It's better than it sounds, yeah. This is called the kebab stand. You can buy kebabs in downtown Portland, right? There's a little Turkish place down there, there's kebabs, right? Authentic kebabs, right? That's right, exactly.
It's where?
It's on 3rd, maybe? I think 3rd near Morrison. Not far from where the octopus used to be, you know, the purple octopus, yeah. I've never gone in there because, you know, the kebabs are made out of typically like 11-year-old frozen chicken or something. You know? They're not. But sometimes you have to have one. And so the city seemed as cities sometimes will, empty, as though suddenly abandoned to contagions, militias approaching across plains. No taxis, not even a stray dog. Just trackless snow, rows of plane trees and dark facades. So we walked, burdened by something unwieldy as a 55-gallon drum, and kept trying to shift its weight, hold it in our arms 1 block to the arsenal, put it down to rest, then lifting and trying to steady it again. We turned at the state archives and passed through a damp tunnel, the shortcut to an arcade where light streamed from a shop at the far end, music throbbing through steamy glass. As we pushed the door open and shook off snow, an earnest man took a piece of flatbread from the oven and assembled in the palm of his hand slices of lamb. It wasn't lamb, let me tell you. I might as well admit it was that repulsive stuff that I was just talking about. Shredded leeks and red cabbage, a dollop of yogurt, a spoonful of pepper sauce, and then folded it, cut it in 2, and held out a half to each of us. For a few coins, we could join all the others eating where we stood in the crowded room, bumping into one another, while on a TV high in a corner of the ceiling, a woman sang beside a balustrade along the Bosporus, whirling to the beat of drums until she became a flame rising into the air. And all eyes were staring, so happy everyone in that crowd at that moment was, to confirm our conviction that this is the only world where the weight of desolation in its streets that night could not obliterate what is necessary and beautiful as a woman and a song. And even as she ended, we cheered her because, after all, we were spellbound and knew we were nowhere near the end of it yet. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you. You've been very kind and patient. Thank you for coming tonight. And Tom said, if I were a good sport, I would take any questions you might have. And I'm here to tell you that I'm willing to be a good sport. And if you have any questions, and if you don't, that's perfectly legit. Yes.
Thank you very much, David.
Oh, yes. What? I thought you were excusing me, and I was like, oh, good. I'm at the door. I'm at the door.
You know, I ask people to talk about their writing practice. What's your writing practice? Your writing discipline? When do you write?
It's changed, I guess. My children are grown and out of the house, and it occurred to me about, maybe almost 2 years ago in June, that I did not have to get up at 4:30 every morning anymore. And my children weren't coming back, and if they did, they would sleep in. I wouldn't disturb them. So I could get up anytime I liked. I could actually not be sleep deprived and grouchy all the time. And so I pretty much write anytime during the day when I have a chance to sit down and write, and feel, need to do so. And as for the rest of it, it's a mystery, and I could not shed any light on giving advice to anyone because I am like a blind man in a dark, alone, finding my way with everything I write. Many drafts and so on. So, yeah. You had a question, yes?
I have 2 questions. What took you to Germany and what brought you to LeGrand?
Well, the story about what brought me to LeGrand is a lot more interesting than about the story about going to Germany. Living in the United States in 2004 and 5 was making me sick. And I was glad for an opportunity to leave. And I kind of felt pretty good. Then I came back, and then I got really sick. And I've gotten a lot better since. That's the short answer. The other one, what brings us to LeGrand, one day when we were living in Montana, maybe like 1982, I cut my toe off cutting kindling for the wood stove. And at the moment I did that, I had been thinking about possible places I could find a job in the West where there were mountains, it was rural, and it was, what I thought that would be the ideal world. And I was thinking about LeGrand at that very moment. I mean, there's a place called Strawberry Mountains, and there was this weird place called Wallow. I couldn't say it, and oh, that sounds interesting. And there's a little school there, The doctor put it back on. They put it back on. But this is the real story, is that a friend came over with marijuana brownies after I did this. So, I didn't take my boot off because I was a tough guy. And my boot was filling with blood. But I ate one of these, and I just sort of went into total shock. I looked at it and I go, oh my God. And they finally rushed me off to the hospital to get my toe sewn on. Yeah. But that's how I ended up in LeGrand. Hapless, it's hapless as ever. It's almost as hapless as my writing, how I write. Yes?
I'm sure this is going to elicit another story. Count on it. How did your writing change from living abroad after you came back here? Did you notice a change in the way you saw the world?
Yeah, sure. I think with the cartographer's melancholy, things started to change back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Because it wasn't just traveling in Germany, we were traveling all over and trying to turn our children into human beings and so largely succeeding, I might add. And I think even though a lot of this stuff seems very narrative, there's a tremendous amount of density of stuff that comes into poems now to the point where you almost can't see through them. They're so dense with things and objects and places and layers of things. And one of the things that I kind of am pondering in the last part of this book is, even though it's completely off the radar, you won't see this, but is how do you come back to a place that likes to imagine itself as a kind of Eden and see the world with the same depth as you see it in places you're not familiar with, and that's kind of where things are now. So there you go. So it did change. I used to be tried to write really limpid poems, and they're awful. Anything else? It is hotter than anything in here. Shall we just... Yes, question. The poet laureate has a question.
If you would read the Chagall poem for us, or do you have another one for you?
I was going to read that, but I thought that I was just,
Please.
I was overstaying my welcome.
No.
Okay, and you don't want to get into that trouble. We're all beautiful as sky. And you know where that comes from? That is a poem, it's the first line of a poem by Walt Whitman. Yeah, and called Reconciliation, and it's about the end of the Civil War. Word over all, beautiful as sky. The tall doors I thought bolted gave way and swung with such well-oiled ease. I lurched forward a step and, stunned, breathed a blue mild as the arms that held the infant Tobias. A blue that glows at the core of silver, blue of comets at the zenith, blue glint of armor angels wear on errands to earth. In no way I could conceive of was that blue a lie, a pretty delusion, a hoped-for answer to the question that we keep asking empty space that never says anything in reply. It was the divine itself, though I believe in no such thing besides the necessity of it, struggling towards us through the layers, returning from its exile in the absolute zero of the void. What is possible, always asserting its fidelity to this world, full to its brim with sorrows. There, high on the walls of chancel and nave, twice reduced to ruins by war, the blue of reconciliation, word over all, beautiful as sky. Blue, a man no God conceived of in the final year of his life, an old man full to the brim with praise, despite the farce that deformed entire peoples and scattered us like pieces of broken bell. That man, even as he fell into oblivion, fell without a trace of regret, this radiance pouring from his mind. Blue, we know, isn't suitable for shelter, isn't an angel bearing good tidings to earth, nor armor that can protect a mother or child. It's our predicament, right? So thank you very much.